Hi friends, hello, how everybody's doing? Today we're going to have live where I, Alina Shaltsova, immigration attorney from New York, going to update you on the recent most important immigration news. Federal judge blocks Trump's administration from fast-tracking deportations to third countries. Those scary deportations to El Salvador of people who never been to El Salvador are stopped, at least for now. We will discuss this very important development. We're also going to talk about very important upcoming deadlines that every immigrant, non-citizen, should know about and keep in mind. So thank you very much for joining. Please like and share the stream. And of course, type up your questions because in the end, after I'm done updating you, I will be answering your guys' questions live, your guys' immigration questions live. Again, if this is your first time, welcome. My name is Alina Shaltsova. I am a practicing attorney from New York, but I do help people in all 50 states and overseas. And I use my social media to update you guys with regard to the most interesting, freshest immigration news. And of course, to answer your guys' questions and just share my thoughts as to what's happening in the United States immigration, especially now during these trying times when we have new developments almost every single day. So let's start. First news concerns those people who already have order of removal against them, and they are afraid that they can be picked up just like other people and be deported to not their home country, but to some other destination, like El Salvador, for example, or Cuba. So on Friday, means today, federal judge from Boston stated that until April 10th, Trump's administration cannot deport anyone to a third country that the person has no connection with, unless they give the person a meaningful opportunity to raise claims, concerns as to why they will be not safe in that third country. It is very, very important. Because you know that recently what happened with people is that they were grabbed and they were simply shipped on military planes to El Salvador, to some very crazy prison where Salvadorian gangsters are being kept. And there was a lawsuit filed about that. And guess what? Currently, the federal judge stopped this practice. So it's extremely important development. Why it's also important? Well, it's important because basically a person's due process rights are being violated when this happens. Why? Well, if you've been through immigration court removal proceedings, you may be familiar with something called master calendar. During that master calendar, this is a short hearing, first short hearing, you, as a respondent, have to answer allegations against you contained in a notice to appear filed by the government against you. And during that process, which is called pleadings, you state whether or not you want to be removed in any of the countries in the world. For example, you respectfully decline to designate a country of removal, but then the government designates the country of removal. And it's always been the case that the government designates your home country or the country where you firmly resettled. So guess what happened to the people that were recently deported to El Salvador? El Salvador was never designated for many of them, for some of them at least, and the country where they can be deported to, right? I'm not talking about right. So I'm not talking about the people who were originally from El Salvador. I'm talking about people who are from Venezuela. So during their proceedings, El Salvador was not designated by the government as the country where they could have been deported to. Hence, they never defended themselves against that country's conditions and against deportations to that country. So their due process rights were violated. And using that theory, basically, the federal judge stated that you cannot, you means the government, you cannot just grab the person and send them to a random country you found on a map that agreed to take these people, because we have rules, we have procedures, we have notices, and it's very important to follow those rules. So that's what happened. I believe it's a great new development because judges are basically standing up against this complete violations of due process. And I understand that Trump's administration would like to resolve certain ineffective mechanisms in our immigration system, but it also has to be done lawfully, right? It's very important that everybody follows the law and not just those who have the power. That's how it's always been and should be in the United States. So for now, this practice is stopped until April 10th. And at that time, the parties are going to present arguments defending the sides of the story, and the judge is going to decide further as to what is going to happen. You need to understand, of course, that we are at the beginning of this battle, and of course, this is the first court, federal court, where the issue is being considered, and it means that most likely this issue is going to travel through appeals to become final. But hey, not a bad beginning, right? Another very important thing I wanted to talk to you about concerns various deadlines, specifically starting April 11th. Those of you guys who have to register, remember that registration rules, it was announced by the Trump administration. You will have to register because if you don't register, you will be subjected potentially to criminal punishments for failure to register. And I had a couple of videos already and articles, I believe, on my website explaining who has to register in a nutshell. Those are the people most likely who crossed the border and never been in any sort of proceedings. All right. So they never filed for anything, they were never fingerprinted. Canadians, some Canadians who crossed the land border with the United States, and people who crossed without inspection. Children who came to the United States lawfully, but because of their young age, they were not fingerprinted at the time when parents were applying for visas for them. Also would have to register within 30 days of them turning, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 14. And you can correct me, of course. People who filed, the rules state, people who filed for DACA or TPS and who have not been registered. I don't really know what it means because as the process for DACA or TPS, you would have to be registered. You would have to give your fingerprints. But okay, those of you guys who didn't register, I guess, who have not been fingerprinted. So those are the main categories of people who would have to register. All right. And the process is outlined on uscis.gov website. You will have to have your USCIS account, and then there is a special form that you will have to fill out. And after that, you would receive a confirmation after the government reviews your form, and you would have to keep that confirmation on you, all right, that you are registered. So it's a serious thing. I cannot say that it's not a serious thing. It is. Will it cause someone's deportation if they fail to register? Yeah. Will it cause someone's deportation if they register and reveal themselves? Yeah. So it's a tough situation for many of you guys who have not been registered so far. And I fully recognize that. But as an attorney, I cannot instruct anyone not to follow the law. So this is very important. Another very important deadline is May 7th. Why is it important? Who knows? You guys type in comments. Hi guys from TikTok. Let me know if you know why May 7th is so important. Well, Real ID kicks in, right? Real ID kicks in. It means that you will not be able to use your driver's license that has not been confirmed as the Real ID driver's license for federal purposes, like get access to federal buildings and to use the planes, to board the planes. That's the most like weird, consequence of not having a Real ID. You will not be able to board the plane. Not like you want to do it anyway during these times, because in the airports, most of the airports are international airports, and in the airports, you may have an encounter with a CBP. And again, if you do have such an encounter, you may be placed in removal proceedings if you lack immigration status. But these days, you can be placed in removal proceedings even if you have status, even if you have a green card. I started receiving tons of phone calls from people who are looking for their family members who are green card holders, who traveled abroad and are coming back. And scenario is usually like such: a person was accused of certain criminal act. Later, the charges were dismissed. The person traveled after that with a proof of the charges being dismissed multiple times and never had issues at the border. But now, for some reason, they get arrested, detained, arrested, and shipped very swiftly to Louisiana. Louisiana is this administration's favorite location. And I'm gonna have to tell you, it's a big facility there, and it's very difficult usually to communicate with people who are detained in Louisiana. It's not that it's impossible, but it's difficult. So you just need to know about that. I would not recommend traveling to anyone at this time. If you have a green card, if you have advanced parole, if you have a visa, okay, just if you can, stay away from travel. All right. Now, guys from TikTok, thank you very much for your hearts and your gifts. And those of you who are watching me on YouTube and Facebook, thank you very much for sharing this stream. And let me answer some of you guys' questions. I hope everybody is doing fantastic tonight. Let's see. Hi, NFT sale. I have a I-130 F1 approved by my US citizen father and is now able to submit documents as I paid the DS-260 and affidavit of support. I am not married. How do I bring my minor biological son with me? Are you going to update that information in a DS-260 form and also just contact the consulate? That's not a problem. All right. Hi. Federal money is not going to be sent to those judges just like an era. I don't believe that the judges here are any kind of issue. The United States is based on the rule of law. At least that's what we were all taught, right? We have the courts that decide the matters. And whether we like their decisions or not, we have to follow those decisions while they are in effect. If you do not like a judge's decision, the correct approach would be to appeal. All right, you go through appeals. And it has to be true for everyone, whether you are a simple person, or you are the government. That's what's important. Because if one of us is going to disregard judges' rules, then all of us will start doing the same. And then we're going to find ourselves in a situation where none of us wants to be. Trust me. Dealing with immigrants and coming from certain countries, I'm going to tell you that it's not fun when all of a sudden one of us decide that judges are not important. Judges are extremely, extremely important. We may not like their rulings. We may not always to do something or not to do something. We must, without any type of hesitation, abide by the ruling, unless, of course, it's overruled by a higher court. And there are mechanisms for that. All right. Hi, Lasha. Any news about EB1A, EB2? I don't really have any particular news, to be honest. Not really. You guys have access to visibility, and you see that visibility retrogresses, but not in the EB1 category. So just be mindful of that. Okay. Hi, MG Solo. If you are a TPS holder who's been already fingerprinted, TPS has not expired yet, but due to be expired in August, you guys don't need to register, okay? If you are a TPS holder, you already have status and you were fingerprinted, you don't need to register, all right? So you'll be fine, don't worry. DACA recipients who already were fingerprinted, you don't need to register, okay? All right. Hi, Julio. What about people traveling to border town while pending green card? Stay away from those border towns. Why? Because 100 miles, within 100 miles from the border, the government is allowed to set up checkpoints. Whatever people online are going to tell you, they are allowed to have those checkpoints. It means that if for whatever random reason they're going to check you and you have no status but just something pending, nothing stops them from grabbing you and putting you in detention. And then you can deal with a judge, they would say, but why would you subject yourself to that stress? Maybe you will win with a judge, okay? I don't know your situation. If you are adjustable and you are eligible and everything is fine, but you do not want to spend a second in that immigration jail. That's, I can guarantee you, okay? So try to stay away from those areas where potentially checkpoints may be. And they are allowed to do that. That's constitutional. There is a US Supreme Court case about that. All right? All right. Thank you, NFT. This is not a judicial dictatorship. Well, no, that's why we have three branches, right? Three branches we have: executive, legislative, and judicial. And judges don't make decisions on their own. No judge just woke up and said, let me pass on some kind of a ruling. It's the other way around, guys. And it's important to understand that. It's important to educate people on that. Imagine you, for example, you go and sue your neighbor for whatever fence situation, right, that you don't like, and the judge makes a ruling and you don't like it. What are you going to do? Are you going to follow that ruling? Well, if you're not going to follow those rulings, then certain sheriffs are going to come and force you to follow the rulings, right? But you are a small person. Imagine the government, who will be the sheriffs. So it's a very sensitive topic, and I feel that the government, out of all of us as an entity, must abide by the court rulings, um, more so than anyone else. When you have a lot of power, you have also a lot of responsibility to exercise that power kindly and diligently and justly. I think that's the core of us, of the power situation, right? All right. Let's see. Let's see if we have more questions. We have tons of questions on TikTok. So thank you guys for your patience. Let's see what we have. Thank you guys for sharing the stream, and thank you for your hearts. Why we have zero info about green card posts besides CBS News, no USS, DHS confirmation or memo? Well, there is a DHS confirmation. One of the news sources published that they actually solicited and received a confirmation from the DHS. Well, I think this administration took this general approach of first testing the waters as to what they want to do. At least that's my impression, by releasing information to the news sources. Otherwise, I cannot explain why we receive tons of announcements which later confirmed to be true through news sources first, okay? I have to tell you that it's kind of like the legality of this matter. I do not know. Maybe somebody will correct me. I understand that there may be some concerns, security concerns about certain groups of immigrants. Can they pause? Can they pause the consideration for everyone? Well, listen, this is the government, administrative government. Remember that the benefits that you're seeking is sort of a privilege, not a right. So I think to some extent they may be able to. But here's what bothers me. As you mentioned, that there are no official memorandum or any kind of guidelines. So let's say some people will be processed and some people will be not. So what would be the criteria as to who will be sort of unpaused from this situation and who will not be? We will not know. It gives adjudicators a great power to not process green cards of people who are undesirable in their eyes compared to people who are desirable, right? It also, and I made a video about it, makes a very important point. I want to make a very important point. It gives them an opportunity not only to vet a person who filed for a green card after they received asylum refugee status, but also to see if they still qualify for the status. And I think that's exactly what they will be doing. There is a situation in the United States immigration law concerning asylum. If your country conditions changed so that you're no longer considered to be a refugee, means that you don't have credible fear of going back to your home country, the government may send you a notice saying that they will terminate your asylum status. All right? So I suspect, and this is just my thoughts, no announcement came from anywhere. But if I were the government, that's what I would do. Let's say I found somebody who is less desirable for me. Oh, what I'm going to do with them? On the face of the documents, they may qualify, and I can delay the process by lengthy background checks, but eventually they're probably going to sue me, right? All right, fine. Why don't I look into the country conditions? And if I find that the country conditions change so that I make an argument that they can go back, I'm going to send them this notice, and in 30 days, they can prove what is proof that they still qualify for asylum. So it's very important to understand that. Now it brings us to another important point. Some of you will say, oh, but then I just received asylum and I do not want to file for my green card now. I'd rather wait. Interesting point. But the more you wait, the higher the risk that your country condition is going to change. If you won your asylum recently and at least one judge agreed with you that your country conditions are bad, if you wait longer and longer, what may happen is that country conditions are truly going to change and you're going to lose your chance of getting that green card. So these are my thoughts. You don't have to agree with me, okay? Maybe you have some other theories, but that's what I think is going to happen, okay? Hi, Juan. I applied for green card based on approved asylum. I just got RFE asking for criminal record, but don't have any. Ouch. That's crazy. They probably confused you with someone else. Why don't you run self background check for FBI, right? And see and present them proof that you don't have that record. Are they saying that the criminal records came from this country or some other country? It's also important. Okay. I mean, listen, this is crazy because you basically are called to disprove that you have criminal records, right? Yeah. My parents are US citizens. Before I was 18 years old. Now that I'm 30, can I still apply for N600? I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know, Kaylee, because we need to know your age, your parents' age, where they resided. In Kurzban books, Kurzban is the encyclopedia for immigration. We have tables. When we determine qualifications for automatic citizenship, we take your data and then we check when you were born, what the conditions were at that time, and if you fall into that category of people who may still enjoy automatic citizenship, right? So that's what you need to do. You need to, give attorney necessary information, contact an attorney, and they will check for you if you can successfully apply for the N600. Okay. What about parole pathway recipient? What should they do to stay in the country? Parole pathway recipient? What should they do? Are you referring, Colleen, to humanitarian parole? People who are losing their status because their status is getting terminated? Well, unfortunately, they will not have too many options, as you may understand. So some of them may file for asylum, right? And the government already stated they will try to see if those people can be expeditiously removed out of the United States. Some of them may have some other options. I know that tons of them had family petitions filed, which are about to be current. It depends on your situation. If you have a family petition pending that will be current, like we can predict, within the next couple of years, it may not be smart for you to try to stay here legally, right? Or to fight for asylum when we know that in 2 years you're going to have that right to come to the United States on an immigrant visa. So then your choice may be to leave to a third safe country, all right? Not to find yourself in this messy situation. Some people may file for that's probably will be the option. That will be the adjustment of status if they qualify, T visa, U visa, or asylum. Limited options, and some people will have to leave. Okay, depending on the situation. That's just the reality of it. The truth is that not everyone can have legal pathway to green card in the United States. Otherwise, we wouldn't have 11 million problem, right? My daughter going to be 21 in June. I have already told them, so is it possible to my daughter to apply? All right. Hi, Gadia. To have a US citizen child, I understand, who's turning 21 pretty soon is very good. But you also need to meet other qualifications for adjustment of status or green card in the United States, such as legal entry, which can be parole or inspection, visa or parole, lack of criminal convictions or charges, right? No fraud in the record, not inadmissible on some other exotic grounds, and you have to make sure, thank you guys very much for the gift, and you have to make sure that you have not been previously in removal proceedings that resulted in an order of removal against you. Because then the process of you getting the green card is very much different. Okay. So if everything is aligns and all you need is the child who's 21, then you're on the good track. Okay. Hi, Laya. I'm a petitioner. My spouse is abroad. Should I travel to go to interview with them? No, no. You will not be able to join them at the interview usually, and it's not necessary. Hi, the enlightenment coach. My wife has a 2-year green card with a letter for 10-year possible X. Is she allowed entry? All right, so she has a 2-year green card, and you guys filed to remove the conditions. And her 2-year green card was automatically extended for 48 months, right? I think that's the situation. Then yes, you should be allowed entry. Okay, you should be allowed entry. Yes, so even if the original green card expired, but she does have that extension, right, for 48 months, she should be fine. Yep, she should be all right. Let's see if we have more questions. Thank you guys for your hearts. All right, let's see. Yeah, so that's where we stand with everything, and I would say that it's difficult times, but not impossible. Again, when you're planning for your immigration benefits, keep in mind points that I made. No, you will not be able to. Has anyone successfully sued Interpol for being put on a watch list with no criminal convictions? Well, Interpol typically issues those notices, right, before you have criminal convictions. Why? Because that's how they want to grab you, to deliver you to court, so you will be criminally convicted. A lawsuit against Interpol? I have not heard of that. I know that you can write a request to them to be removed from the list under certain circumstances, okay? And it's not easy to be removed. I have to tell you, it depends on circumstances. But the problem of these red notices is a huge one for asylum seekers. Why? Because you may be denied asylum, disqualified from asylum, if a judge finds that that red notice has basis. And typically, according to the case law, if there is a red notice against you, the judges take it very seriously as proof that the charges are based on some probable cause, on grounds that you committed the crime. Okay, and because of that, people very often get disqualified from asylum. Of course, if you come from a country that issues those red notices left and right against for politically motivated reasons, then you have a very good chance of either convincing the Interpol to remove it, or to convince the judge that they should disregard the red notice when they make their determinations. But if you were charged with crime, serious crime, outside of the United States, first of all, you must disclose that information on your Form I-589. And if it's a non political crime on its face, you will have to deal with this issue in court. Don't think that they will just understand that you were charged with embezzlement because you were a political opponent. That's not how it works. You'll have to have a serious situation there, right? Yes, and basically you have to prove that you're innocent before an immigration judge in America instead of that court that has jurisdiction over your true case. Right. Hi, Melanie. Where did your question go? I have a 10-year green card category Z13. Have no idea what it means. Do I at risk also to be denied? Anyone who has a green card right now, if you guys had criminal charges in the past or some issues in your cases, just don't travel. Unless you absolutely must, just don't travel. Don't take that risk. Every day, my office is slammed with phone calls from family members who are in despair because their family member was grabbed. Okay. And now they're looking for them, or the family members shipped to Louisiana. You don't want to be in that situation. Why would you put yourself into this situation? Just don't. Don't. Hi, I'm Kit. Never been out of status, had two misdemeanor, but got dismissed. Legal entry, is it going to affect my green card? Yes, it may, as I said. Yes, it may. You have to know something which all my clients know about. Even if you have a dismissal for criminal purposes, for immigration purposes, if you faced any type of punishment, be it anger management classes or a small fine, the government may still argue that you are guilty for immigration purposes. What is it, 10 years ago, 12 years ago? It was a big issue in immigration that we had a lot of cases like that. Later, it kind of calmed down, and generally speaking, immigration would not try to dig past the certificate of disposition as to what happened and if you were truly guilty of anything. But now, I guess, they return to that very conservative approach. And you have to know about that, and you have to be careful about that. Okay, consult with an attorney if you had any sort of criminal record. Only if the criminal record was so light that it would qualify for exceptions to any deportability grounds or inadmissibility grounds, then you're safe. But just saying that, oh, I had a misdemeanor, it doesn't tell me anything. Certain crimes can be labeled as misdemeanors, but nevertheless, they make you inadmissible or deportable, right? Okay. All right, let's see. Do we have more questions? IBZ came back with, what is this? Without I-94 in 1995 into the United States after removal of 1994 and 30 years and no green card. Well, you re-entered the United States after you were removed, but you re-entered prior to 1996, right? So hopefully, and again, it has to be verified and verified twice and thrice if you're subject to a permanent bar, right? But usually people who re-entered prior to change in law are not subject to permanent bar. Nevertheless, you don't have legal entry. So you can check if you were ever sponsored by anybody, petitioned for, prior to April 30th, 2001, to see if you would qualify for 245I. But there is also something else which is very important. The initial reasons for your first removal are also very important. We need to know whether or not those initial reasons still may present issues for you. Sometimes they do, all right? Hi, no name. Can we travel by green card? Is it safe? Not safe, don't travel. That's my short answer. No, don't do that. Just don't do that right now, okay? Don't do that. Take into consideration also discussions about various travel bans. You do not want to be in a situation where potentially government may change conditions of your green card and you are overseas. Please keep that in mind. Okay? All right. Let me see. My parents, hi Shaq, my parents came last year and they want to go to Germany for 3 months. Are they okay to come back? Are your parents green card holders now? So if they want to travel back for 3 months, generally speaking, they should be fine. However, just to be on the safe side, I would strongly recommend that they apply for reentry permits. Okay? Parents are typically older people. Older people have health issues. God forbid they develop some kind of a health issue and they will have to spend more than 3 months overseas, more than 6 months, more than a year. That's how you lose your green card. Okay? So just get the reentry permit. They will not need it, fantastic, all right? But God forbid they need it and they didn't apply for it, it's going to be a huge issue. All right. Hi, Angie, my mother-in-law is waiting for biometric appointment. Can she travel inside the United States? Visa is expired now. Where is she going in the United States and why? So somebody filed for her, your spouse, right? Filed for her. She doesn't have status. Just discussed that situation at the beginning of my life. I believe that you don't want to expose yourself to the possibility of being detained in the airport by the CBP agents. And especially when we talk about mother-in-law. Again, older person, right? Don't need the stress, no access to medication and things that she likes in the detention. Eventually she's gonna get out of it, but you don't want to be there. You don't need that. Don't do anything right now. Don't go anywhere. That will be my conservative advice to you, right? Most likely, most people will be fine when they travel, but some of you will get hurt by all these changes. And you need to understand that, all right? Do you want to take that risk? No, I would say you don't, unless there is something very serious as to why you want to travel. So just understand that during CBP inspections on buses, on trains, and in the airports. All right. And if you drive, if you violate some traffic rules, the government has a right now to stop you, pull over. In certain states, they cooperate with ICE and actually act as ICE agents. You don't need that. All right. That's how I see it. Listen, some people will not listen no matter what you tell them. All right, so let's see. We have been documentary qualified since August 2024. How it's going in Abu Dhabi. If you're from Abu Dhabi, I'm going to tell you that if you're consulate in Abu Dhabi, these things are not doing great. You may wait for 2 years. If you can, try to change the consulate, okay? I think you're going to probably have better, faster processing time somewhere else if you believe you can go somewhere else. That's my just honest advice about Abu Dhabi. I don't know. It's overwhelmed. That's just the truth. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining today's live. Thank you for your hearts and your likes and your shares. Thank you for your questions. I hope this live was helpful. If so, please like and share it. Do not forget to join my social media family so you will stay updated with regard to the most interesting recent immigration news that you need to know about if you are a non-citizen in the United States. Well, I hope you're all going to have safe, healthy, and wonderful weekend. I hold these lives on Tuesdays and Fridays as long as I'm healthy and everything is well. So if you join my social media, most likely we're going to see each other again next Tuesday. And for now, good night, guys, and I hope to see you soon.